This is one of their mobile kitchens that they actually...
Is that even some, what I call habitual...
Beautiful Stop and Shop in the Wilton. Penalty, but it was actually a tax, and that it... Absolutely. What's the name of the show? Good evening and welcome once again to this show. We have got an incredible show. I know there's a hurricane coming ashore in North Carolina, but frankly, we're not in North Carolina. We're right here in the Nutmeg State, and we have our own little storm whirling around the Nutmeg State, and here's what it is. The rest of the country is drinking champagne, eating caviar, going, happy days are here again, the skies above, because they're experiencing economic growth unheard of during the Obama years. Unemployment is low. We're once again respected around the country, around the world. And yet here in Connecticut, you wouldn't believe it, but we're actually losing population. People are moving out. They're moving out to Florida. They're moving out to North and South Carolina where they can get hit by hurricanes. They would rather face a hurricane than face the taxation and anti-business climate that we have in this state. And by golly, it's got to change. Now, I know, there's some of you out there, I realize you can't swing a cat anywhere in this state without hitting 5 liberals that hate Trump and think he's a monster. I get it, I understand. But you have to look at Connecticut and say, is the direction we're heading the right direction? Is there a reason people are packing up and getting out of town? Is there a reason your house that used to be worth $750,000, now you can't give it away for $500,000? That's not good. That's the American dream. Work your ass off, get a mortgage, pay it down, and once you're done, you have a little nest egg so you and the little one can move down to the villages in Florida and live out your life, driving around in a golf cart, eating, I don't know, shrimp cocktail and playing golf. But that dream is going away. The dream of raising your family and having them get jobs in thriving companies here in the state so you can see your little grandkids on the weekend and bounce them on your knees, that's leaving too. And the reason it's leaving is because there's one party that has dominated this state for decades now. And I get it. You want to be a team player. You want to support the home team. But this time, in 56 days, you're going to meet someone on the show tonight who is darn worth having a look at and considering voting for. And that's Matt Corey. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks, Marty.
Sorry, I get a little upset sometimes.
That's good.
I just have to vent a little bit.
Passion.
Because I love this state. I've raised my family in this state. And I want to stay here and live out my retirement. I want them to take me out of this state, feet first, as they say. What can you do in your race against the current senator from the state of Connecticut to win this race and start at a federal level to see how we can begin to turn things around?
First of all, you need somebody that wants to work with this administration and not obstruct. I mean, Connecticut, let's go right to it. Connecticut has a choice. You either send a senator back down that's going to obstruct this administration for the next 2 to possibly 6 years, or you can send a senator down there that's actually going to work with this administration and bring them much needed federal funds home to Connecticut.
I mean, I really don't understand the whole concept of obstructing. There's things that the Democrats want to do, like the Dreamers, like DACA. They want to do that, but they're not willing to make a deal because, well, Trump might look good at the end of that.
You know, to wish the president fails just for political gain, it means you're wishing the country fails, and that's not right.
It's really highlighted at these Kavanaugh hearings where our Senator Blumenthal, saying, Mr. Chairman, I would like to, rescind this meeting and let's all just go home. He looks so impotent and powerless. I mean, that's just kind of silly.
That's the face of Connecticut. That's an embarrassment. Look, they asked me the other day what qualifies me to be a United States Senator. And if I look at our 2 senators down there, they set the bar pretty low. Look at the Judge Kavanaugh hearings. I mean, not only did they attack his wife, the family, the kid, I think that at one point the kids had to actually leave that hearing down there. Yeah. And they're just making up stories. I mean, this man is more than qualified to be a Supreme Court nominee. And I'll tell you, Marty, that the problem is that, Republicans, they vote in for originalists. The Democrats vote in activist judges. And that's why you see such a passionate problem with the Supreme Court nominees. These hearings should be just about qualifications, and it's not. And because the senators can't garnish enough public support out there for their policies, they need an activist judge to take over, and that's where our country's failing.
Okay, you've been walking around the state, you've been meeting people, you're actually, hold on, let me see these hands. Look at these hands. He's got calluses. You see these hands? This is a working man, not a guy faking it walking across the state. This guy actually works for a living. It's a good thing. It's a good
Absolutely.
thing. But what do you talk, when you talk to the average guy on the street, do they really want our senators pouring their time into attacking Supreme Court justice nominees or trying to get, porn stars from 15 years ago that had some sort of a run-in with the president? Is that really what we're sending our senators to Washington to do? Because that's all I see on the TV. When I see Blumenthal and that other guy you're running against, all they have to do is like, yeah, Trump's a monster. I'm tired of it.
Yeah, it's all about bashing and obstructionism. Look, we have small businesses. I work alongside the hardworking men and women of the state of Connecticut. Senator Murphy ran an ad out. He's walking across the state of Connecticut. He's entering these businesses, and like he really knows how it is to meet a payroll and run a business. He's never worked a day in his life in the private sector. Myself, I can walk into a small business, the manufacturer, they'll tell me, hey, I got inventory costs, I got regulations, I got compliance, I meet a payroll. I understand that. That's what I do. So when they tell me they have those problems, you send me to Washington, I take that to heart, Marty. I take that to heart because I live that. Senator Murphy has never lived that. He's never held a job in the private sector his entire life. So I don't understand how he can understand what is the issues facing Connecticut. And the reason why he has to walk across the state is because he moved his whole family out of state. So do you want a guy that's living in Washington that doesn't have any vested interest in the state of Connecticut? Unlike myself, who I own 2 small businesses here in the state of Connecticut, I employ people. I have vested interest. Who do you want representing you? Somebody that calls the shots that don't even live here, or somebody that actually has a vested interest?
In a way, it's kind of like he's a reverse carpetbagger, because now he's actually moved his whole family into Washington. He's set up, and then he comes out to the district to go glad hand, make sure their cameras around, and then try to say he's representing
Look, the people I talk to, it's about jobs, construction jobs. I work on construction sites. We need to keep those working men and women on the payroll for more than 6 months. I mean, they work 6 months, they're on the bench for 6 months, they're doing side jobs. If you're a carpenter, you're out doing side jobs. We need to keep those benefits flowing. We need to keep them hardworking men and women. Look, there's a $1.5 trillion infrastructure package on the table down in Washington.
Yeah, whatever happened to that?
Yeah, well, how much is Connecticut going to get if you got 2 obstructionist senators working against this administration every single day? You need somebody down there that wants to work with this administration. That Tax Cuts Jobs Act has helped my small businesses out. It's helped buying product. It's put people back to work. There's 13,000 manufacturing jobs that we need to be filled. I talked to manufacturers around the state. They said the biggest issue is finding their help to get in there and people qualified to actually work. So that's what I'm working on, Marty, not obstructionism.
Yeah, and really everything, as much as there's hatred and heat for Trump in the nutmeg state, and I see it from time to time, maybe it's like just a few people, but they're really loud, kind of like at the Kavanaugh hearings where they stand up and yell and have to get taken out. But everything that Trump's doing is benefiting the state of Connecticut.
Absolutely.
We make helicopters and we make submarines, and he just upped the military budget like 20%.
It's helped
That's
everyone.
Money coming into Sikorsky and Electric Boat. The tax cuts that I've seen, like I'm a painting contractor. That's what I do. You had a
high-rise window cleaning business in a small Irish pub, and we're looking to relocate. But yeah, I know what I mean.
But you see people, they have more money in their pockets. Business optimism is as high as it's ever been. Unemployment among minorities, among Hispanic, among women at historic lows. So we are benefiting from the Trump administration. Yet you talk to some hardcore Democrats, like the ones that were out rioting in front of the Stefanowski debate the other day, and they're like, "Oh, Trump's a monster. He hates children."
And I saw a lot of union members out there. I mean, you haven't had a president. They're bashing the president, this administration. There hasn't been a president in the history of this state, in the history of this country, that's hired more union labor than President Trump. It's all rhetoric, and it's all coming from the union leadership. It's not coming from the rank and file. Look, I work alongside these guys, these men and women. They want jobs. They want construction jobs.
And they're kind of Trump voters.
They are
on
Trump
the down
voters.
low.
Of course, they keep it quiet.
Yeah.
Look, we have a strong
I
economy.
think Trump owns the blue collar.
He does.
The firemen. I know the military. Forget about
Police
it. They love
officers
them.
are brave.
Police officers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's the silent majority, and I believe they're going to come out to vote. So.
All right. How can people get in touch with you? How can they help out? I mean, you always need volunteers. You need guys to knock on doors, stuff envelopes, maybe throw you a few shekels.
Look,
what do you need?
Yeah, CoreyForSenate.com. We could use your help. Look, he's sitting at 54%. After spending $5 million in this cycle, we got a shot at this, Marty. We just need.
So the
people.
polls right now are 54.
He's up 54%. That's
Okay.
it. I mean, so after spending $5 million, going against a guy like myself, can you just imagine the stark contrast of different? You got a guy that's never worked a day in his life, walking across the state of Connecticut, versus a guy that works every single day, wears a pair of boots, wears a hard hat, owns a small business. I represent 60% of the country. That's who you need to send to Washington, somebody that lives it and talks it.
It's interesting. In the grassroots, it's fascinating to watch this from a political point of view, but it's really the blue collar, the grassroots guys, the guys that the Democrats used to own back in the 40s and 50s. I'm voting for FDR, that kind of thing. Those guys are gravitating towards Trump. And it's not so much conservative versus liberal or Republican versus Democrat. It's insider versus outsider.
Exactly.
And I think you represent the outsider. I know you're Republican, but I don't think you are so dyed-in-the-wool Republican that's where you have your marching orders. But what about that?
Look, I know the balance between meeting the payroll and being a hard worker and as an employee. I get it. I get that delicate balance. I mean, we need more of that down in Washington. You need to understand both sides, and I do. You have to have real life experience. I served in the military. I got my leadership skills through the Navy. I got my leadership skills through owning a small business. You have to compare the two candidates. You have one guy that's, like I said, has never worked a day in his life in the private sector. How could he possibly understand the struggles of the American people? How could he possibly understand the struggles of the people here in the state of Connecticut if you haven't lived it? It's one thing to say that you understand, it's another thing to do it. And what has he done? But obstruct. And like I said, we have a choice in this election.
And we have infrastructure money that's sitting on the sideline right now that could benefit 95. It could benefit some of the renovations going on even on the Merritt Parkway right now. It's ready to go.
We get the two largest ports outside of New York City. We get to get the longshoremen involved. We got Bridgeport, New Haven. We can take some of the heat off the highway and move some of that product through the freight liners. We can do that. We can up our rail systems. We need to do that.
And right now, that federal infrastructure money is sitting there on the table. Trump would love to make a deal.
He's a Connecticut resident. Why wouldn't he? His family's from here.
But the Democrats that are in there, and they're shoulder to shoulder, they won't even negotiate to get that deal done.
It's a shame, Marty. They don't want to give this administration credit for anything, and that's not how you do business. You're supposed to represent the people when you get on in Washington. This shouldn't be a personal issue. I mean, I could understand objecting to the president under policy, but just under personal hatred, it doesn't benefit our state at all.
I don't think it's resonating. You
No.
got the stripper thing, you got the issues at the border where they're trying to say he's separating, and then you got the hurricane coming down, and they're already advancedly saying it's his fault because of global warming that this hurricane is going.
It's unbelievable.
It's crazy.
Yeah, they wouldn't give this president credit for anything, Marty. It's not right.
All right, we're kind of in the racing lounge here. Okay, you've been on Breitbart. Ann Coulter has come out and supported you. You've been on the Daily Caller. You have spent maybe pennies to his $100 bills on this campaign. Yet you're still seeing some traction. In the next 54 days, what is your plan to meet people, to get out there, and then garner the votes to come together? We have a big governor's race this cycle. It seems like people are energized. What's your plan?
Yeah, look, we have to nationalize this race. I know the focus is going to be on the governor's race, but we have to nationalize the U.S. Senate race. We have to look and bring attention to it, and we've been doing that. Like you said, Ann Coulter endorsed us. We've been down to Washington, D.C. Breitbart's been on our side, so it's great. We're out there. We're trying to raise a little money. It'd be great if we can put some digital out there. Once we get a nice digital ad out there, I think they'll see that stark contrast between the two candidates. So we just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and we're going to get there. We're going to get there, Marty.
And you're embracing the president? You're not giving him the Heisman, the stiff arm?
He is my president, and I'm looking forward to working with this administration to bring the much-needed federal funds home there to the state of Connecticut.
All right, so all the voters out there in the Naugatuck Valley and some of the more blue collars there, the Stefanowski voters from Litchfield County and all over there, this is your guy. He's met a payroll. He knows what it means to run a business. He's not this career politician that's already there. If you want to continue that trend and you like what you see in the Oval Office, this is the guy we got to send. I mean, how great would it be the day after the election to say, in an unbelievable Cinderella story, the long-standing senator from Connecticut has been sent packing by Matt Corey.
Thank you, Marty.
May it be. Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you coming in. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, along those lines, Cheryl, we're going to have a video here real quick if we can. We're going to set that up because Bob Stefanowski is not afraid of taking on the establishment. He is not afraid of being identified with Donald Trump. And I think you'll appreciate this most recent little thing he put together. Just wait 1 second as I cue it up. We're waiting for it, but you'll see. If we're ready, here we go. Enjoy this.
Police, they don't have to comply with requests from ICE to hold illegal immigrants for deportation, saying that his state has no obligation to cooperate in the enforcement of federal immigration laws.
How did you lose General Electric? How did you lose General Electric? Bad governor. You got a bad governor. Any governor that would lose General Electric hasn't done his job, let me tell you. Bad governor.
It's massively in debt. The capital city's on the verge of bankruptcy. We're laying off teachers.
Real garbage.
Connecticut complies with the law. The president can't order us to do federal work.
Talking about garbage.
We have not laid off teachers, so I don't know where you're getting that really from. The Hartford Courant, which said that the city of Hartford, for example, is about to lay off 200 teachers under the current budget. The city is selling junk bonds. I mean, it's like going under, as you know.
Talking about garbage.
Frankly, the federal government should do its own job and get it done. We're not standing in the way of that happening.
You have a governor in this state who's done a very poor job.
GE left after many years in your state, went to Massachusetts, not considered necessarily a hospitable place for business, but they did. Well, let me stop you for a minute. Yeah. GE moved 200 jobs from Connecticut for $160 million. Not a big deal? No.
To your incompetent governor that you're not going to take it anymore, okay?
I inherited a mess that my predecessors set up by giving away benefits and not funding the long-term obligation.
You know, he changes his name. I thought it was Daniel, then I thought it was Dan, then it's Daniel. Daniel? I never heard of Daniel, right? Where is he now? You're good at this stuff. Where is he now?
People in the state are worried because clearly it's in trouble. When you have a $1.7 billion deficit.
Connecticut ranks number 50th among the U.S. states for its fiscal health.
I'm Bob Stefanowski, and I approve this message.
So there it is, Bob Stefanowski, not afraid to identify with our President Donald Trump. This is an all-in situation for the Nutmeg State. If you like the direction we're going with and you want to go with little me, go to Ned Malloy. It's Governor Malloy's younger son. It's mini-me, Ned Malloy, because he will continue. He will double down on taxes. He's going to put in tolls. As a matter of fact, we have an expert on tolls that's going to be joining us in just a minute to talk about tolls and the impact on small businesses, the impact on jobs, the amount of tolls. They're going to actually, when you get up in the morning and go get your morning paper at the end of the driveway, there will be a toll you have to pay to walk down your driveway if these Democrats get their choice. They're going to put a little chip in your neck. They're going to record it from drones flying over, and they will charge you for walking out of your house. That's what you get with the Democrat Party here in Connecticut. We have 54 more days. Okay. I was embellishing a little bit about that. I think you can still go get your morning paper if that's what you do, but most people just look in their phone anyways. Well, we are joined right now by Pat Sasser. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it. And we also have Mike Medeiros right there. Handsome young guy. Some of you girls dated him at Westcon University when he was heading up the College Republicans. Now he's a big wig at Fox News, but he's not doing anything wrong there, so he has a long career ahead of him. And we have the ever loquacious, and he put on a tweed jacket, Dave Streit is joining us as well. It's a little disheveled, but it's looking good.
I do my best.
But the main guy we want to talk to begin with is Pat Sasser. You have come out strong. I have an article about you going all the way back to February 13th against tolls and what it will mean.
Correct.
For the average guy out there, he's just trying to, meet his mortgage, just trying to get his kids off to school in the morning. Maybe he's going to, coach the girls' basketball team for his daughter. He hears rumblings about tolls. What would it mean to the average guy who's going from Greenwich to Bridgeport on 95? What would it mean?
Well, it would mean passing underneath roughly around 14 tolls from Greenwich to Bridgeport. That's on I-95. The I-95 would be tolled, Merritt Parkway, I-84, Route 8, sections of Route 9, I-91. So basically every major highway in Connecticut, up to 72 tolls is what the governor was proposing in his latest plan. People of Connecticut spoke up, spoke against it. We were able to defeat it in the House. They didn't bring it up for a vote because they knew the constituents didn't want it. And our fearless governor did an end run around it and spent $10 million through bonding to have a toll study done.
Now, Joe Markley, who was on the show last week, he tried to get a legal injunction.
An injunction,
against it.
correct.
What happened with
I
that?
don't know the full status of that right now. Last I heard that the courts were reviewing it, but I don't know if it's going to hold up in court. But I give him credit for trying. And really what people need to do is focus on this election come November. As you said, Ned Lamont is pro-tolls. So if people want to spend an extra several $100s a year and waste that income paying tolls, then that's your man to vote for. Stefanowski has come out. He's been to the rally that I held in Stamford. He stood there and fought against the tolls with me. So that's the guy we need to put in office come November.
It is a pretty stark contrast. Ned Lamont has already come out and said, yes, I'm going to raise taxes. Bob Stefanowski says, no, he's not only going to cut taxes, he's going to gradually take the income tax out.
Right.
That's what he wants to do. This guy, Bob Stefanowski, I've looked into him. He's turned around companies. He's dealt with $500 billion budgets with that Swiss bank he was working with.
Right.
I mean, this guy is no joke yet.
That's almost as big as the Clinton Foundation.
It's getting there close. Although donations to the Clinton Foundation
Dried up.
Dried up just a smidge once all the.
But it wasn't pay to play.
No, it wasn't.
No.
Shame
Where
on
did
you
they
for
get
even
that?
saying that. They're just trying to help children and illness around the country, and I don't know where you'd get that. But it's a stark contrast. Bob Stefanowski, and not a career politician, an outside businessman. He knows what he needs to do. And then you got Ned Lamont, or little Neddy Malloy, and he's like kind of born with a silver spoon, in his mouth, and everything was. He was born on third base, and he thought he hit a triple.
Couple months back on the radio, and this just goes to show where people's mindset is on this. Even George Jepson was on a radio show, and he was quoted as saying, the $10 million study, well, that's just a drop in the bucket. And these are people that are just so out of touch with reality of what people are going through in Connecticut right now. People are struggling to pay the bills, struggling to pay their employees if they own small businesses, and this is just another tax on top of a tax. And it started way back when the income tax was going to fix everything.
Right.
Then the lottery was going to fix everything. And then the casinos was going to fix everything. And we were going to have plenty of money. Well, now it's tolls. Planting these tolls to them is planting a tree in the backyard and plucking money off it. And that's what their goal is. And 72 tolls. What other state in the country has 72 tolls? None.
Yeah.
So this
and
is
we're
Connecticut.
already like our beloved president just said, we're 50th in business friendliness.
Yeah, so if you're going to
move
move
anti-business environment.
right, if you're looking for a place to start your business, is Connecticut where you want your employees traveling through the state paying extra hundreds of dollars a year on tolls? Or are you going to move to a different state that doesn't put that burden on the employees? Easy decision.
Just say a word. I want to get your insight, and then we're going to go to national, because evidently Dave knows who Deep Throat is, who wrote that op-ed in the New York Times, which is fascinating because no one else does. But you'll get it here first on the Marty Heiser Show. But just statewide, what are you sensing the mood of the electorate is? Is it like, we really hate Trump and we're going to stick it to the man by voting Democrat this time? Or what do you like? Different groups, and I'll let you. But different groups like Second Amendment advocates, people that are against the tolls specifically, taxes in general. What are you finding?
I think you have two groups of voters. You have people that are just so set in their political ways that it doesn't matter if the moon fell on the earth, they will still vote for that same candidate.
Okay.
There's a group of individuals, though, that can separate what happens in Washington with what happens in their own state.
Right.
That's the group of people that are going to swing this election. If they can take away the rhetoric that's going on in Washington and just focus on what's happening here at home, then I think our next governor is going to be Stefanowski. People are going to recognize that the 8 years of Malloy didn't work. Ned Lamont is charging to do the same thing that Malloy's been doing. So I think people are recognizing that, and I think it shows because Malloy's approval rating is as low as it can get. I don't think there's a governor in the country that's any lower than he is right now. So Ned has been associating himself to Malloy.
Yeah.
I think that's going to hurt him, and it's probably going to, cost him an election. So I think people are smart enough to focus on what's going on here, not so much of what's going on in Washington.
All right. And we had a debate last night. Do you have that video of what happened on the outside? Just
Yes,
give me
I do.
one button to push. I'm a very simple man. But what happened in the debate?
So last night, or the other night at the debate, the Stefanowski-Lamont debate, I lost it here, so let me find it again.
That's okay.
There was some, I guess, union thugs that showed up and started bullying.
What I heard is that it wasn't Connecticut.
Stefanowski.
It wasn't Connecticut unions either, but it was like unions out of Maryland or something
These
like that.
guys weren't from Connecticut. They had New Jersey accents. They were tough guys, mafioso-like. So
Any name Vinny?
maybe. Let me find this here, and then you guys can.
Okay, well, let me. While you're looking for that, while our crack team is putting that together, Dave, what do you see? I mean, you're kind of in the same, kind of a similar situation where Connecticut used to be an ideal place. All right, here we go. If we can get the video ready.
This
is just kind of a
WWE?
taste of. Yeah, this is your Democratic Party. You know, the liberals caring about the little
It's
guy.
a party tolerance, Marty.
Yeah, party
tolerance.
That went off. Just cue it up one more time.
Well, I think when Joe Markley was on the show, last week, I think it was summed up. The Democrats want to do for Connecticut what they did for Detroit, and the Republicans want to do for Connecticut what they did for Tennessee.
Okay. So we had Bob Stefanowski supporters out there.
Watch the guy in the yellow.
Where are you?
I was at
See, he
work.
was safe in his home. He's not going to go out there.
Yeah, Fox News.
This
I was
looks
in my
crazy.
office.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so
this
the
is
guy
the
in the yellow.
union thug, the one in the yellow,
right.
starting fights with people. Stefanowski supporters. Saul Alinsky tactics, no doubt.
Give us a word on Saul Lewinsky here.
Saul Alinsky.
Alinsky, right.
So he wrote the book
Exactly.
Rules for Radicals. It was Hillary Clinton's favorite book, Barack Obama's favorite book, and they advocate for this type of political discourse. Use violence, accuse your opponents, what you yourself are guilty of.
Like a Russian collusion or something like that.
Yeah.
So this is it in action. You've got your agitators right there in the bright yellow, possibly bust in from New Jersey, New York, some of the out-of-state union strongholds, and they're bullying local Connecticut Republican voters. And it's just sad that this is really what our political discourse has boiled down to in a state like Connecticut. You'd imagine something like this happening out in Seattle, San Francisco, but not here in Connecticut. And it's just sad. So I hope that when November comes around, Connecticut voters will finally see the light and help themselves and vote for Bob Stefanowski.
Yeah.
I don't see any police out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
You kind of like think that they'd be out there trying to help keep the peace, calm things down. The guy from InfoWars, I didn't see him out there. He'd fit right in.
No, I'm telling you, it is. I mean, it is incredible when you look at. I mean, I string this together, and you tell me where I'm wrong. The Kavanaugh hearings, where every minute and a half there's someone standing up, going, you're the scum of the earth, you hate America, and they're like cussing the guy out.
Well, it was a completely orchestrated show, what they did. I think Ted Cruz today described it as kabuki theater, and it was dramatic political theater. Grandstanding is what it was. And it wasn't honest, it wasn't authentic, and I think the American people could really see that.
Speaking of Ted Cruz, is he going to win?
I hope so.
Yeah, they're
you
alleging
never
that it's a
know.
bit of a contest down there.
Yeah.
It's one of the closest ones he's been in a while. Who knows? I think he wins in a landslide.
Well, I think that race is just kind of funny because you have the Irish kid, Beto O'Rourke, trying to kind of run as a Hispanic, and you have the Hispanic Rafael Ted Cruz kind of running as, you know, the white hoity-toity guy. So I think that's just a funny race to begin with. Now they threw Willie Nelson in the mix, just appeared at a Beto O'Rourke campaign rally or something or other.
Oh, really?
And the internet is in flames.
Wow.
No kidding.
I could see that. I could see that. But what's your sense? Dave, talk about like Connecticut. I mean, I don't know how to feel about this coming.
Well, I think you summed it up last weekend, as you usually do in brilliant, bright form. People are moving to Massachusetts to get out of Connecticut. Companies moving to Massachusetts. Whatever happened to the whole Massachusetts, the worst place on earth to start a company, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, people are going, you
People's
think it's
Republic
bad
of
there,
Kentucky.
you got to try Connecticut, and they're out of here. I mean, next thing you know, you're going to see companies moving to New Jersey to get out of Connecticut. The fact is, you know, a few of our guests that have come on have identified the fact that Connecticut has the highest per capita of government employees of any state in America, double what Indiana has. And then they have all the legacy costs that go along with it. Is it any wonder we're $100 billion in debt? We're not getting out of that mess until we go bankrupt or until they start breaking union contracts, because the unions have a stronghold here. My problem is if the Republicans do get in office, it's like, you know, picking the shortest guy in the fight. Do you really get a lot more? You get more, but do you get a lot more?
See, people are doing that because I see it on like the internet and stuff. Like the Republicans are saying, okay, we got Stefanowski, we got Joe Markley. Everyone loves Joe Markley. They feel like, yeah, he's our guy. But they're like, yeah, but they're not quite pure enough. I don't know if they're
No, I
gonna
think
do
they're
enough.
great.
And-
I'm just talking about
But I don't think that's the right
Senate and
attitude.
House.
54 days before, I'm not saying you have this, but 54 days before an election, it's all hands on deck. These are our guys. We had a primary. We had a convention. Everyone ran their ads. Everyone debated, and we had a vote.
Well,
and this
and
guy won.
and if you-
so we go with this guy.
Well, and if, you know, people always like to say, don't be, you know, nobody should be a fan of single issue politics. If I was going to pick a single issue for Connecticut, it's tolls. Tolls are the dumbest thing we could possibly do for Connecticut. So I admire people that take the time to get out and fight and get vocal and make it visible.
Yeah.
But most people are like sheep, right? It's only 5% of the electorate that's going to take a stand and get active. Everybody else is just going to take whatever comes their way. So that kind of worries me. 77 tolls, did you say?
Yeah, 72. was the
72
vote.
tolls.
Well, look at what tolls does to somebody like me, young professional just starting out in the world. I'm forced to leave Connecticut to go find work elsewhere because there's no jobs to be had in Connecticut. And then on top of that, already paying gas over $500 for the train and parking. You know, everything else on
Don't
top
forget
of
your
that.
car tax
yeah,
on top of it.
and the car tax, property tax on top of that, and then you want to throw tolls into the mix. So really, what it's doing is it's handicapping this younger generation like myself, who's just starting out in the world. They're setting us up for failure, and then they expect us to repay them for that by voting for them. I don't think so, Marty.
All right, well, listen, you speak for the younger people, but are they going to come out and vote in 54 days in this gubernatorial election in Connecticut?
I think you'll be surprised. I think more people will come out and vote in this election than they have in the past. I think both on the left and the right, of course the right, but Malloy wasn't popular all around. His approval rating was in the 20s, in the toilet.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of Democrats didn't like him. So I couldn't understand why they would just go for more of the same. And if they do, well, that's the definition of insanity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, the thing I get a kick out of is, you know, the people of Connecticut like to fashion, well, they're very liberal, they're very Democrat, and they like to fashion themselves as very environmentally friendly.
Right.
And they all want to gravitate towards electric vehicles because it's going to save the planet, right? So, you know, car manufacturers have somewhere around 100 new vehicles, electric vehicles, coming out in the next 5 years. It's going to be a revolution. It's going to be a game changer for transportation, like probably the biggest revolution in our lifetime. Who do you think has the most expensive electric rates? Connecticut.
Yeah.
So now they're going to, we need all these electric cars. Have you stopped to think about what you're going to pay to charge these things? Do you think all these free charging stations at gas stations are going to be free forever?
No.
Do you think the subsidies are going to be free there forever? No, they're not. You are going to get shafted buying electric cars in Connecticut. So there goes the whole green thing. Load up on oil.
Patrick, you are out there. You run a business. You have a trucking firm. You've been organizing with some of these other people. What do you see as motivating the independent businessman in Connecticut right now? When they're really contemplating what it takes to meet a payroll, how they're going to pay all these taxes and regulations, what's the biggest thing that you're hearing?
It really just comes down to the taxes. I mean, at the end of the year, when you try to, figure out the taxes and you start paying your federal taxes, your income taxes, your state taxes, your local taxes, your property taxes, when you look at all that shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, and you look at it and say, okay, I just worked 365 days out of the year, busted my butt, and this is all that's left. It's frustrating. It's aggravating. Yeah. My brothers and I started this company 3 years ago, and like anybody else, you go out there and you want to do well, and we started hiring employees. We bought more trucks. We're doing great. Next thing you know, insurance fees went up. The registration fees went up. Now they talk about the tolls and all these other costs. The fuel, the gas cost more, the diesel cost more, the gas tax went up. At some point, you just get frustrated, and that's what small business owners are going through right now. And I'm telling you, if they're not focused on this election now, this current time, I think we've lost it. If we don't put a guy that's going to fix this state in this time, this go around, I don't think it's ever going to happen. We've never had a governor with such a low approval rating. We haven't had such a deficit in this state. People are frustrated. You ask anybody that lives in this state right now, if they had an option to pack up and leave, they would say yes. Even if they lived here for the last 50 years, they're ready to pack up and move out. So people have a choice, and it's this November. We either fix it now, or it's going to stay broken probably for the next 20, 30
well,
years.
You remember in the Reagan era where David Stockman was the budget director and he was being accused of trickle-down economics? Remember the phrase trickle-down? Well, that's what we have in Connecticut. By the time it trickles down after we pay all our taxes, all we have is a trickle left. That's it. So, I mean, our effective tax rate is north of 50%, 55% for the most part, right? For the people that work. And you're at the point now where the people that are working and are productive can no longer bear the burden for the people that aren't. So you have to cut taxes across the board dramatically, and I think Joe Markley and Stefanowski, they're 100% right. You've got to go back and eliminate the state income tax. We talked about Tennessee.
I heard something like it only brings in 1% of the state budget. Can that possibly be?
I don't know. But
that's what he was talking about.
What I know is that Joe Markley went down and worked with the people in Tennessee to prevent a state income tax. And now what's happening? I mean, you take a city like Chattanooga, Tennessee, 150 people a day are moving there. Is it any wonder that rates to take a moving van to Tennessee are twice as high as going out of Tennessee?
Well, I think a point that a lot of people actually miss, and it's really staring us right there in the face, is that all of this whole process that we're talking about, it's by design. It's meant to keep them in power, because think about it. As long as they bleed the people who are making money in Connecticut, hardworking people, as long as they bleed us dry, we're not going to have any money. We're going to need to go on welfare, food stamps, this and that. The more and more dependent on government we become, thus keeping them in power. So this whole process of tolling us, taxing us, it's all by design to either have us leave the state or get us dependent on the state, therefore keeping them in power. It's actually kind of like it's evil, but it's kind of brilliant.
So I'd like to know where some of our former governors currently live, like Jody Rell. Where does Jody Rell live today?
She is in Florida.
Yeah, and why is that?
Because she
no
got
taxes.
So
she destroyed Connecticut and said, "See ya, my work's done." Takes her retirement package, doesn't turn around and spend that money in Connecticut. Out she goes.
Yeah,
it's not a good deal.
No, it's not. It's not good at all. But to your point, it is rather frightening. And I got firsthand. There's a guy who owns a couple restaurants that I happen to know, and he got his citizenship. Oh yeah. By the way, if you want to join us, feel free to call the number on your screen, 203-438-2003. We'll take you live right on the air if you want to join us and tell us where we're going wrong or right. But he got his citizenship. And he went down to New Haven where they got sworn in by the federal judge, and Jim Himes is down there, and they're saying now you can vote, vote Democratic. And so to your point where they're saying let's keep the people that need government and are sucking at the tit of government, and the producers and the job creators are leaving the state, and those that are more dependent on the state will be a likely voting bloc for the party that's in power. And also when you have new immigrants that are coming, and they're saying, hey, I'm glad you're here, here's all the benefits package we have, and vote Democrat, they're inheriting the blue-collar workers that Trump took. That middle class that are now Trump voters, that voted for Obama twice, are now are Trump voters. They don't care. They've written them off. They're saying, let's find more dependent people.
Well, what they're doing is they're exploiting our system by trying to replace the demographic of people in Connecticut. They're trying to replace the population. They're trying to get the traditional older generation out. And this new generation, heavily made up of immigrants from third world countries, in to basically replace us as voters. It's almost just like us having an agreement to vote democratically, but then one of us opening up the back door and letting a couple more people in on their side to tip the scales. I mean, it's easy to see. Their tactics have been on display for years now. It's just that lately they've become more and more brazen, and I'm surprised more people haven't called them on it.
Yeah, it's frightening. Okay. Predictions. What do you see happening? Do you have any optimism? It was so funny before the November 16th election. I thought for sure Trump was going to lose. I thought, oh boy, Hillary Clinton's going to be the president. But I was surprised. I was shocked. There were people out there listening, and they said, you know what? I've had enough. I'm going to give this other guy a chance. But what do you see happening?
I think if Stefanowski picks up his game a little bit, gets a little more engaged, shows a little more enthusiasm in his campaign trail, I think he wins come November.
Okay.
I also
and did he bring everyone with?
I think we pick up maybe 1, maybe 2 seats in the Senate. Okay. House might get close to a tie, but I don't see us taking the House.
You're talking about the state
Senate,
and the state.
Because right now we're tied, and I think there's a couple of races that I know down in my area, Stanford, where I can see 1 or 2 seats being flipped.
You know, it's so interesting when you look at the votes in the 2016 presidential election. Fairfield County went for Hillary. Yep. A lot of the,
very Democratic area,
yeah, very limousine liberal and everything, but it was the Naugatuck Valley. It was some of the more blue collar. Right. They went for Trump.
Right.
They wanted him.
Right.
So maybe this time they come out and
the blue collar. It's the working class. That's the thing. Sometimes Republicans do get lazy. Election day comes around. I don't want to feel like pulling in there to go vote, and that those few hundred people, thousand people are enough to kill the election.
Oh, I never understand that. I always
I've never missed one in my life, but if people, decided, I'm going to turn this way and head home, I'm tired, I worked all day, it can cost the election.
Okay, predictions, and then we're going to go to the federal stuff because you know who Deep Throat is. But what do you see happening in Connecticut?
Look, I'll be honest. I'm not going to get my hopes up, but I'm totally ready to be surprised because on November 12th, 2016, I was actually writing my post-mortem article on that Donald Trump was going to lose the election, but I was so glad that I got to ball it up, throw in the waste paper basket, and continue riding the Trump train.
It was unbelievable. I got a call from one of our guests on the show the night before. I said, "Can you come down to the Hilton?" So I was down there at the Hilton. And no one was more surprised than the people in that room. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't really that big, and Trump did it by design because he thought he was losing. Hillary Clinton had the Javits Center, with the fireworks and everything else,
and the fake glass ceiling.
They were
going to no show, right? Yeah, she never walked out on stage.
There's like a handful of us with dopey hats on, going, "I can't believe this!" Right? It was a fun night. Caller. Do you agree that Stefanowski will be the next governor of the state of Connecticut?
Marty, anybody with an R after their name, I'm telling you, there's going to be such a blue wave. I mean, everybody has had it with the lies and the bullshit from Trump. And the perfect example is taking $10 million from FEMA funds to be used to lock up kids and put them in cages. Marty, the Republican Party's got to be ashamed of themselves. I mean, the fact that you guys took that money to lock kids up and
they were Obama cages, right?
I mean, it's a practice that's been done for quite some time.
I'll let him keep going. But it was Obama's cages, right?
Yeah,
Trump didn't make those cages.
The pictures were from 2014.
The pictures were from 2014.
Right.
But I got them on. Yeah, caller. Thanks for that. I'm going to reevaluate my entire life, political views, and everything else. I really appreciate the call.
Marty, here is the key to the election.
Yes.
In a nutshell.
Okay.
You have got to get Stefanowski and Joe Markley on this show to launch
Okay.
their campaign and put them over the top. Because every one of these candidates come on the show, we've launched them. Right?
Wait, sorry, Stefanowski was calling.
No, we launched them. We put them over the top.
Yeah.
They come on the show, they're going to win.
Well,
Oh, and
success has 1,000 fathers, and failure is always an orphan. But I think we've had one or two candidates that have lost.
Well, I'll give you my post-election prediction on a national level that the wall will be started in March.
Okay.
And he's going to do that with defense funds, right? So he's just going to shave off a little money here, just say, hey, it's for national security, we're going to go build the wall. The wall's going to start getting built.
I
pretty
think it
darn
already
quick.
has starting to get built. But let's do that. Let's go to Trump. He's forever fascinating. Since we last
I wanna hear
joined him,
about
he's we've had
I can't tell you about Deep Throat. I'm gonna, like the last 5 seconds of the show, who's Deep Throat?
the anonymous op-ed out of the New York Times, which essentially said, yeah, he's a really gruff boss and he steps on people's toes.
Wah.
I mean, yeah, to me, this is not news. That's pretty much.
Who hasn't worked for a tough boss? I mean,
He's totally transparent. I mean,
Right.
throughout the election, he's saying the most incredible stuff. No one would think he said.
love him or hate him, you always know what he's thinking.
You also know what
That's
he's
the
saying?
bottom line. And I think he has changed the dynamic of that White House that we will probably never see again in our lifetime. Who can sit home and listen to what the president is telling you, on your phone?
Yeah.
Not from someone in front of a camera, not a spokesperson. The president of the United States is sending you a message.
And on any given day, he'll tell you what he thinks of the NFL. He'll tell you what he thinks of, casualties in Puerto Rico,
Right.
and he'll tell you what he thinks of Rosie O'Donnell, all on the same day, and tariffs against China and peace on the Korean Peninsula.
Right.
And
this hurricane that hits in the next couple days, he will handle that as a true American president. He will be down there. He's going to do what he needs to do to fix that area. He's going to be there for the people, even though he's still going to take crap for it because people are still going to say, he didn't do it right. But, he always puts America first. He puts people first, and you got to applaud him for that.
Well, can you imagine if he didn't have to face the opposition that he faces every day,
Right.
how much more he could accomplish?
Right.
And I think life can be a series of defining moments for people. And this guy Mueller, right? I've never met the guy, but you read stories about him. So here's a story that most people probably aren't aware of and nobody's really talked about. 30 years ago, he was in charge of an investigation up in Boston where a mafia thug got shot in an alley. He pinned this murder on 4 individuals, one of which wasn't even in Boston at the time. They all got life sentences. The whole time he knew who the real murderer was, who was an informant, but they didn't want to finger the informant. Roll the videotape ahead about 20 years.
Yeah.
1 or 2 of the guys dies in prison, 1 or 2 of the guys gets released, and the state has to pay $100 million in penalties and fines because the Freedom of Information documents came out and demonstrated that Mueller knew the entire time that 4 guys were innocent, and that's the type of guy that we're dealing with, where the ends always justify the means. He's got an agenda, and now he's trying to package all the data and information to satisfy that agenda. The agenda is solely to fry Trump. That's all it is.
He's slippery.
Well, and he's
guys
not
are.
reputable. I mean, the guy he's at the epicenter of the swamp. And he's
Speaking
got
of
to
that,
get drained.
there's Mueller with Clapper and Brennan.
Yeah.
And that tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, right there, the good old boys.
Yeah.
They're there. They're like, don't worry, I got this. We'll get Trump.
I'd love to know what that's all costing the taxpayer.
Well, that's the thing.
What
Right
is that-
now,
what is
right
this
now,
up to
even
now?
even
They
tonight,
said around $20 million so far, but who knows?
Even tonight, more texts are coming out from Page and Strzok that this whole thing was set up. And the biggest disappointment I have is some of these spies that came out. Remember, they said that there wasn't a spy, there was never a spy. We can't tell you the identity of the person who was infiltrating it because he might be in trouble because he was spying, but he wasn't a spy. But
There was no spy, and that's why we redacted his name.
There's no spy, and that's why we redacted his name. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. And then it shows all the leaks that are coming out of there, Strzok and Page, and it's getting worse. And wait till they declassify some of this other stuff. But people would rather talk about this creepy porn lawyer or Trump putting people in cages that were there from the Obama administration.
Well, listen to this. If you look at some of the other leaders from around the world, Merkel, May, and Macron, all of their approval ratings are in the 20s and 30s. If
Yeah.
you look at Trump, He's still in the upper 40s, sometimes over 50%, with 99% of the media coverage all negative. The deep state throwing everything in the kitchen sink at him. He's a fighter, and he's made it through this. So, I don't think that there's much that they can do if he is where he is now after having gone through all that already. And I think if there is an attempt to impeach, I think they're going to fail, and I think it's going to end up backfiring and making him stronger at the end.
Yeah.
So.
Well, okay, nationwide now, we've hammered the nutmeg say quite a bit. Nationwide, what happens? Do they flip that seat in North Dakota? Is Cruz going to be okay? What's going to happen in the House of Representatives, in the Senate? What are your predictions? You're down there with like all the cool people down at Fox.
Well, I can tell you
So
what
you're
they.
out of
I
the
can tell you
water
what
cooler.
I can tell you what they
When
think.
they're not
around the
sexually
water cooler.
harassing each other, what else do they say down there?
Me too.
So this is the talk.
When
this is
everyone's
what
got
I
their
hear.
pants on for a minute, what do they say?
This is the general consensus. They think that the Democrats are going to take House seats and the Republicans are going to take Senate seats. Whether or not the Democrats take enough House seats to flip it is one thing, but let's look at one race in particular, the race in Florida, Bill Nelson, highly vulnerable against a popular governor, Rick Scott, running for Senate. I think Rick Scott takes that Senate seat. I think after all the hubbub about it, Ted Cruz wins. And I think maybe we take a couple more. And in the House, maybe they take a couple seats, maybe we take some, but I think we still I think we still keep it. I think this red wave is going to be more like a puddle, and I think really what's going to happen is a red wave.
Or a blue wave goodbye.
Well, I don't know. I mean, okay, so you say the Republicans hold the House.
I think
we're
we
not
hold
having
it.
Nancy Pelosi as Speaker.
No.
And in
No
the
way.
Senate, we're actually going to pick up seats.
Yes, that's what I think.
All
So
right.
now you want to know who Deep Throat is?
Yes, let us know. By the way, what you're talking about with Deep Throat is originally during the Watergate era, there was a guy that supposedly met with one of the authors of Watergate in an underground parking garage. He was known as Deep Throat. It was later understood that he was one of the head of the FBI, as I think there was a deathbed confession on that. But now there's been an anonymous opinion letter,
Op-ed, written in the New York Times.
And who is it?
Well, I don't know. but okay, Ann Coulter came out.
Like, you know.
Ann Coulter came out, and she thinks it's Jared Kushner, interestingly enough. And the thing is Ann Coulter's not a dummy. There's got to be a motivation.
Didn't she grow up in New Canaan?
Either she has a grudge match against Jared, but there's something there. She wouldn't just come out of the blue. She's closely aligned with Trump, a big fan, a big supporter.
She doesn't like Jared because Jared's a Democrat and everyone knows it.
Well, I mean that could be. But there's got to be some. If there's smoke, there's got to be a little fire.
But what about what Michael Caputo said? Trump associate Michael Caputo, who's now bankrupt because of the Mueller investigation, he was on, and he said he thinks he knows who wrote it. Didn't say any names, but said it was a she.
Yeah,
and he
I
was
heard
very
that
close
too,
to the
because
campaign.
there were he references. That was on Mark Levin too. And his analysis was, well, if there's a he reference, it was probably a she. And I think it was probably someone in foreign policy. I mean, they're trying to like shape it. And
Well,
craft
when they
it
say
somewhere.
Or it was just completely contrived,
Yes.
and it was completely fake because the New York Times and CNN and all these mainstream media outlets have squandered their credibility over and over and
All
over
done for
again.
ratings.
Yeah, I mean,
That's what it's
I
come
don't.
down to.
I think that the theory that it was just completely BS is just as valid as Ann Coulter's theory that it was Jared.
I mean, you have a business right near here. You do medical engineering.
yeah.
Do you think you could get someone off the record to say, you know that Dave Streit, he's a son of a gun. You know, the other day he yelled at me because an invoice was wrong, or, you know, this wasn't picked up, or my expense account.
He's a tough boss.
He's a son of a
You wouldn't have to look real far.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, I mean, this is like a disgruntled employee. My understanding of a leading administration official, it could be one of 3,500 people that could fit that description.
Right.
So I don't think it's his son-in-law. I actually like
look,
Jared
if they
for two
wanted it to
reasons.
have any-
Jared also, during the campaign, he got him the interview with the Mexican president where Trump went down there and actually looked pretty presidential. That was Jared's idea. And Jared's going to be peace in the Middle East. He gave him that assignment.
Well, how about today? The Democrats were trying to dig out something on a Me Too thing on Kavanaugh from back in high school
It
where
was
he
junior
could have
high.
maybe done like bullied someone or
He went for the kiss too early.
He went for
Was
the
that
kiss
what it
on
was?
the cheek.
That's what happened. Same thing happened with me and my wife.
On the second
I
date.
had gone out with her on a couple dates.
Denied.
It was a green GTO. It was a very
year?
cold night. It was no, the car or the year I tried to kiss her.
GTO.
Oh, the GTO. It had to have been a late '70 GTO. Really nice. I borrowed. It wasn't mine. I borrowed it from Clark Gilbert.
Did it impress her?
Shout out to Clark Gilbert. No, she was never impressed by anything I tried. Playing hockey, having cool cars. None of that impressed her. And I leaned over for the kiss. And you know that cartoon with the cat that's really a skunk?
Pepe Le Pew.
She was like Pepe Le Pew. She was like, yeah, like that. And I'm not used to this reaction. Usually, and so I was intrigued. Let that be a lesson to you out there. Don't give up the first kiss too much. Let them, kind of.
Better yet, have them sign a contract first.
Yeah, a release
That's what I
document.
would
Release document.
Yeah,
Because
pre-kiss document.
You
So
may
come
want to
back
be a
and haunt
Instead
you
of
for
condoms
30
in the back
years.
pocket, just always have your, release form.
It was our third date and you tried to
sign
kiss
here.
me. That's the thing. No, but this whole Kavanaugh thing is just a joke. I mean, it's just the utter irrelevance of the Democratic Party, at least in Washington. It's got to irk them. And I think
Well, he'll
they're
be
going
voted
nuts.
in by the end of September. I mean, without any question.
I think
right?
they're voting next
Think
week
about
on the
this.
20th or
Had
something like that.
McCain passed away sooner rather than later, Obamacare would have been voted out. Think of the difference one guy could make.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think we're faced with that in this fall election.
All right, we're in
One
the
vote.
lightning round. Give me 3 topics you want to talk about.
Okay, we got to dump the Pope. It's out of left field.
Okay.
The Pope is a complete scumbag. The
I
guy
think-
should be locked up and thrown away the key. He should be sent
In
to
defense of
Rikers,
the Pope,
wherever.
I think he's taking steps now. I think
No,
the
no,
guy.
no. He knew about this since 2000. He's duplicitous. He's at the epicenter. He is functional, served as like the cover man, the cleaner, to try and cover all this stuff. He is responsible for the ruined lives of tens of thousands of boys that have been raped and abused over the past 30 years. The guy's a scumbag. They got to throw him out and start from scratch. And one of the first step in the cure is let priests get married. Let the priests get married. Some of that rape, incest, all that mess is going to go away.
We
I'm
already
just telling
had
you.
the Reformation 500 years ago. Why haven't people learned? That's my question.
Because I don't know. They trust guys like this Pope. What's he? He's like an
He's a
organized-
socialist from Argentina, right?
Well, he's like an organized sex lord. He's just disgusting. They gotta throw him out. Okay, so I'll just leave you with that. The other thing I would tell you is, every now and again you gotta wonder what happens to people that that turned on the Democrats and the liberals. I mean, here's this writer who was responsible for these claims that Obama had, was gay and all the rest. So he turned up dead. I guess that didn't go so well for him. And the last thing I'd bring up is the whole Me Too movement. That's kind of interesting because, the woman Argento that was at the center of the Me Too movement, and then she comes out, oh, yeah, well, that thing with the 13-year-old boy. Okay, yeah, I guess I did that.
He raped me.
Yeah, there you go. And then this guy who's the head of the CEO of CBS, Les Moonves, well, there's a $100 million fine for sexual harassment. So this whole Me Too movement is sinking all the Democrats, sinking all the liberals.
Harvey
The
Weinstein.
revolution always consumes itself.
Yeah,
Mike, final thought? Actually, that's a good final thought.
Look, you
Quick.
can't be the culture and the counterculture at the same time. It's a new era. There's a new sheriff in town.
It's hip to be conservative. Last thought, Pat, and thank you.
No
Any
tolls.
No tolls. All right. Thank you for joining us on the show tonight. Next week, you will want to tune in because we are giving the keys to the asylum to the inmates, namely David Streit. We'll be running the show from start to finish. Who's your guest going to be?
I'm working on that.
Working on that. He might get Jared Kushner himself. Deep Throat. You heard it here first. When it comes out, you'll know you heard it here first.
Stefanowski on here.
Could be good. All right. Good night. We'll see you next week. All right. Thanks.